the Ministers of Justice in West Africa, the participating Ministers of Justice are expected to critically examine the reasons for the loss of confidence in the justice systems in West Africa.
The technical inputs of Ministers of Justice from across the region would help enhance the value and adherence to these principal policies on access to justice and transitional justice.
Ghana's Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Mr. Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, detailed steps Ghana is taking to strengthen the justice system. The steps include supporting state institutions to tackle poverty, corruption and inequality, which are key reasons for societal upheavals.
In our quest to make justice delivery transparent, we have, with the support of the World Bank, developed an integrated information management system which aids in filing court processes and is ultimately intended at fully digitizing the operations of the Office of Attorney General and Minister of Justice. We are also developing a scheme for enabling funding of the sector and improving the training of prosecutors. The Ministry also continues to introduce relevant legislations and take other measures to combat corruption and reduce its effect on the development of the nation.
The two-day meeting is expected to stimulate a renewed commitment among the justice ministers to ending impunity, ensuring access to justice and human rights in West Africa. The Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Mr. Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, says a plea bargaining bill has been gazetted and will be laid before Parliament next week. The bill, if passed, would allow persons who offend the law in some cases to negotiate with the state. Mr. Yeboah-Dame mentioned this on the sidelines of a meeting in Accra on how to improve public confidence in the justice systems in West Africa.
Undergoing stakeholder consultations, and indeed I had occasion to comment on it last time that there has not been any legal professional properly prepared by me because it has to go through a process. It went to Parliament last time, and the lifetime of Parliament lapsed. As a result, we have to start the process of review. So I've written to the chairman of the Legal Council, who is the Chief Justice, asking them to present their comments in this stand by the bill. I myself also have certain other perspectives that I would want to share. I think I ought to be fine-tuned and reform further. So after all the process has been exhausted, the bill will be laid in Parliament. Right. Yes, the plea bargaining bill is ready. Gazetted same on 29th November. By the details of the Constitution, before a bill is introduced in Parliament, has been gazetted for 14 days. 14 days will lapse, I think, somewhere early next week. And by the end of next week, it will be introduced in Parliament. I think that the Constitution is a very important reform of the criminal justice system in Ghana to help in not only the congestion of the prisons and all, but it will actually help in even unraveling other crimes. Because by the plea bargaining agreements that we get into, we can also boost our efforts to arrest other criminals. So the bill, as I indicated, has in it certain controls to prevent people from abusing the system.
Still in news, come January 2022, public agencies will be ranked against each other on a corruption barometer where results will be publicized every December 9. Also, public institutions and agencies will be required to submit integrity plans on corruption management. These were some issues that came up during an interaction between the Special Prosecutor and the media. The Special Prosecutor, Mr. Kisie Jabin, says these, among other measures, are to involve all Ghanaians to collectively fight corruption. The media interaction was to mark International Anti-Corruption Day.
From January 2022, the OSP will institute, as part of its Pressure for Progress drive, an annual Ghana Corruption League table to assess perceived levels of public sector corruption in the estimation of experts and business people. In aid of this, public agencies will be ranked against each other on a corruption barometer and the results will be published every 9 December. From January 2022, would also require all public institutions, departments, agencies, and companies to prepare and submit to the OSP integrity plans intended at assessing deficiencies in their regulations, procedures, policies, guidelines, administration instructions, and internal control mechanisms to determine their vulnerability and exposure to corrupt practices and the prescription of curative measures to manage such susceptibility to corruption and corruption-related offenses. I look forward to the provision of adequate funding and the necessary material resources as stipulated in Articles 6 and 36 of the UN Convention to carry out this most challenging and solemn mandate. I cannot help but state that without adequate funding and the provision of the necessary material resources, the good intentions of my staff and I would remain just good intentions with nothing concrete to show for it. As we mark International Anti-Corruption Day and Anti-Corruption Week, I invite all well-meaning Ghanaians, let's renew our mindsets and collectively let's help to turn the negative narrative
You're still watching News Hour live on GBC News. And nearly 50% of candidates who participated in the 2021 West Africa Senior School Certificate Examination (WASSCE) failed the 2 key core subjects required to secure admission into tertiary institutions. According to WAEC, over 45% of the candidates who sat for the 2021 WASSCE failed mathematics and English language. WAEC says 54.08% of the candidates passed English language compared to 57.34% in 2020. WAEC also reviewed that 54.11% excelled in mathematics compared to 65.71% last year. The situation is even more worrying for some 3,667 candidates who will have to wait for months before seeing their results or may never get to know their performance because WAEC has withheld their results pending the conclusion of investigations into malpractice detected during and after the conduct of the examination. We gleaned the thought of the Executive Director of Africa Education Watch, Mr. Kofi Asari. Good afternoon, sir.
Hi, good afternoon.
So the results are finally out. What is your general assessment of this year's results?
Well, I think in general, this was not bad. It was good. In 3 of the subjects, the Ghana Education Service actually met and exceeded the attack. I'm talking about integrated science, math, and then social studies. It was only in English. That's their target, as contained in the education related plan, was not met. So I think that it was a good performance overall.
Now, WAEC is saying that about 45% failed in English and maths. What do you think went wrong?
Well, the issues normally are not secondary level issues. Maths and English subjects that are foundational in nature. You are weak in maths, and it is difficult for you to become strong in maths at the secondary level. So we have deficits at the basic level when it comes to proficiency in maths and English. And that is what I see translated, in senior high school. I think the solution to strengthening maths and English, the best way to strengthen our performance in maths and English is to target quality improvement in the way maths at the basic level.
Please explain further. When you say we should target the way maths is taught at the basic level, what do you mean?
Maths is perceived as a difficult subject because of the way it is taught. math teacher was taught math in a way that math is called a critical point of view. And so it's used to it. And it would I was taught, or she was taught. If we are able to adapt more participatory, more flexible, more interesting, and more learner-based approaches in teaching math, it will make the learning of math different. Students will grasp mathematical concepts much easier and will be happy to participate in the learning of mathematics. But if we continue to make it a mystified topic, then the more and more students will be shying away from learning math. So it's about changing the way we teach math. If we teach math the right way, I'm sure people will be happy to learn math. And the general performance in math, both at basic level and secondary level, will improve.
So that is a preferred way of teaching maths at the basic level. What about the English language? What do you think accounted for that mass failure?
I think English only. Let me give you an example. Rule of thumb. The subject of instruction mainly. When the students go from school, they go home and they are exposed to a new language.
Sorry.
Okay, so your parents are not educated to be able to assist you speak English, learn English in school. At the community. Now, education is not only the function of the classroom or the teacher. It also takes place in the school environment and at the community level, in households. So while students have very limited educational levels, and they can't even speak English, you can imagine how challenging it would be considering the perfect or to practice the speaking of English and the learning of English. So I think that if we are able to strengthen how we speak English, ensure that we have more textbooks in English, and then get students to be involved, even though they may not be educated, get them to be involved in getting our students spending more time in their books, it will help improve generally the quality of learning in all subjects, and not only English. I believe that if we have more competent teachers, trained teachers in all English classes, and the teachers are competent, the teachers themselves are trained and can teach in English. I'm sure that the quality of English teaching and learning would.
There are others who think that the speaking of pidgin and the way the students write in shorthand may also account for the mass failure in English. What do you think about this?
We've heard of writing shorthand, writing social media language, other people who are against them. That's kind of known. There's one difference between English they speak and they go and use for adaptation. And if they use social media and the one they use for adaptation, they must learn to write and speak the English that is acceptable in or out of school. But what is it? Teachers themselves. There are some teachers who cannot write with it, who cannot speak with it, but they are teaching in the classroom. I have been going through some states of some techniques in the College of Education. If you look at the quality of English living, you understand why the output of that teacher will produce low level of math in English. It is important that the kind of people we deploy to go and teach at basic schools are people who understand, speak, and write good English. Because English is virtually the foundation even of mathematics. You are teaching English, you are using English to teach math. So if we improve the quality of teachers we deploy in the classrooms and ensure that the teachers are good teachers, both writing and speaking, I'm sure that will also help in improving the quality of teaching and learning of English.
Sorry, with these results of nearly 50% of the students failing in English and maths, it will be a difficulty for them to enter the university with this result. What do you think government's intervention should be in this case? Hello, Mr. Asari. Hello, Mr. Asari. Well, I'm afraid we've lost Mr. Asari on the line, but we were talking about the results of the 2021 WASI, where over 50% or about 50% of the students failed in maths and English. We'll continue that conversation later in other segments. Now, the Ghana Prison Service, in collaboration with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime and the U.S. Embassy, have launched the Ghana Prisons Reform Project. This is to ensure that the Ghana Prison Service complies with the United Nations Standard Minimum Rules for the Treatment of Prisoners, also known as the Nelson Mandela Rules. It is also to strengthen capacity, improve safety, security and transparency of Ghana's correctional system.
Implementation of the reform project falls in line with the Ghana Prison Service's 10-year strategic goals of providing a safe, secure and humane environment which offer reformation and rehabilitation services to prisoners. It will help the service to become more self-sustaining. The U.S. Ambassador to Ghana, Ms. Stephanie Sullivan, said the project builds on the U.S.-Ghana partnership in criminal justice system and justice sector reform.
The United States, through the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, also funds a justice sector program designed to increase citizen oversight and monitoring of criminal cases, strengthen advocacy for accountability of key justice sector institutions to improve the delivery of justice, and increase citizen knowledge and access to the justice system here in Ghana. This project also complements existing U.S. government support to the Ghana Prison Service and Ghana's justice sector, including our support of the draft Ghana Prisons Services Bill and our support of the draft Community Services Bill, which seeks to introduce non-custodial sentencing as an alternative to incarceration.
The Director General of the Ghana Prison Service, Mr. Isaac Kofi Ejiri, said even though the Ghana Prison Service has made some progress in incorporating best practices into its operations, a lot more needs to be done.
The contemporary system entails ensuring the human rights and dignity of prisoners. And there's this international instrument that regulates effective management of these prisoners. That's the Nelson Mandela Rule. And it is imperative for all prison officers to be abreast with the provisions in these international instruments. And therefore, this collaboration is going to afford us the opportunity for Ghana Prison Service to know more about the Nelson Mandela Rule and enhance our capacity as prison officers to ensure the proper management of the prisoners in our custody.
The Interregional Advisor of the UNODC, Mr. Philip Mesner, says the project will enhance the capacity of the Ghana Prison Service. The UNODC's mission is to contribute to global peace and security, human rights and development by making the world safer from drugs, crime, corruption and terrorism.
255 buses belonging to the Metro Mass Transit Limited have been earmarked for scraps. The company explains that these are buses with major faults, including those with engine problems, axle problems, and those as old as 18 years. The head of Corporate Communications Unit at the Metro Mass Transit Limited, Mr. George Asante, joins us on the line with some explanations. Good afternoon, Mr. Asante.
Good afternoon, my dear.
Is the intra-city metro bus still operational?
In fact, I'm struggling to hear you loud and clear.
Mr. Asante, if you can hear me, I'm asking if the intra-city metro bus is still operational.
What's the question again, please?
Is the intra-city metro bus still operational?
Are you talking about the buses that have been earmarked for scraps?
No, I'm asking in general if the buses are still operational.
If the buses are in full operation?
Yes, please.
Oh, yes, we are in full operation, yes.
And how many buses are you currently operating?
As we're speaking, on daily basis, we're reaching from between 222 buses.
Come again, sir.
On daily basis, we're reaching between 222 buses, 220. Yeah.
Mr. Asante, how many buses are needed for efficient operations?
When President Akufo introduced Metro Mass in 2004, we started with 1,024 buses. But then there was a plan that after maximum 8 years, successive administration needed to replace all the old fleet and then bring in new buses. But that is where the problem is. Successive government failed to implement fleet replacement management and policies that was introduced. And it was under His Excellency Atame's JBM administration where he brought us these 200 Wangai buses. And these Wangai buses, as a matter of fact, it was for the first time that these buses were introduced in the continent of Africa. And even getting parts when the bus gets broken is a major challenge for the company. So as we're speaking now, it was in 2017, 2018, under His Excellency Amado, that the company was also given additional interpretation, 99 of them to just add to our fleet size. So as we're speaking now, we have a deficit in terms of optimal operational level of about 1,000 or 800 to 1,000. That's where we are looking at. And as we speak in management, together with the Ministry of Transport and the government, we've made a lot of arrangements and we are confident and hopeful that by first quarter of next year, we'll be taking delivery of no less than 300 buses to be operational.
Asante, if I get you right, the reason why we have some of the buses not in operation is because of the parts you are not getting, or is it because we normally buy overaged buses?
It's a combination of factors. We cannot say that it's because the spare parts are not there. For instance, a company that was used in 2004, of course, we still have as part of our fleet some of the buses that are too old. Some of them are as old as 14 years, 15 years. But when you visit our various terminals across the country, you realize that most of our buses still have registration numbers of the expired. You understand? And it's not good for a transport company. But the older the buses become, the expensive it is running them. And it even affects the customer confidence in the company. Because you put a bus on scale, a passenger that is traveling from Accra to Kitty, thinking that in the next 3 hours he's supposed to get to a destination. The bus at Univer Junction then gets broken. Then of course you would have to just move an empty bus just to go and rescue the people that are stranded there. And these are all costly operations. You understand? So what we did before a bus is start, it goes through series of examination. We conduct what we call internally as technical examination on the bus. The technical team next study the bus and then also perform financial analysis on the bus, whether or not the bus is ready for road. At the end of the day, as a transport company, another mandate we have is to ensure that we save lives. We don't just put anything that cannot guarantee the safety of our passengers. So recently we did what we call nationalization of buses, such that we concluded on those buses that we consider a bit okay to run. Whilst we're still making arrangements to procure new ones at our operational. So it's not like the buses are ready for road and we are saying that the buses are going to be scrapped. No. We have actually conducted a lot of studies of the buses, technical analysis of the buses, and the conclusion was that these 250 buses. And we're not only talking of a particular head office, or we're talking about 250 across the country. In all, we are running 16 depots and hubs. So the 250 covers every branch within the 16 regions. So it's not as if, like I mentioned, these buses are quite okay to be run, and that we are not repairing them for the good people of this. But these are buses that are too old that nothing actually can be done about.
So, in other words, the scrapping of these buses won't affect the operations of the transport?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much. We've been speaking to Mr. George Asante. He is the head of corporate communications unit at the Metro Mass Transit. You're still watching News Hour live on GBC News. The Minister for Fisheries and Aquaculture, Madam Mavis Kumson, says very soon the ministry would automate the distribution of fuel in the various fishing communities. This, she says, as part of initiatives to curb smuggling and hoarding of premixed fuel. The minister was in Parliament to explain attempts by government to control and regulate fishing activities at the country's shores.
Very soon, we will be automating the supply of premixed fuel, and every fisher who is supposed to have the premixed fuel will be issued with a card on which the subsidy will be placed on, and then they will use that one to draw the premixed fuel. I believe when we do this, it will help us reduce the hoarding of premixed fuel and the diversion, because at every time we will know the number, the quantity of fuel in the tanker or the reservoir.
The 2020 running mate for the National Democratic Congress, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman, has made a passionate appeal to the government and civil society groups to urgently close down all witches' camps across the country. Professor Opoku-Agyeman made her appeal while on a visit to the Leli Dabari camp in Gushegu Municipal as part of a 3-day visit to the region.
There are currently about 1,000 women and 700 children living in 6 of the witches' camps in the northern region. For years, most of these elderly women accused of inflicting death, misfortune and calamity on their neighbors and villages through sorcery and witchcraft are being expelled from their villages. In view of this, an isolated shelter is being created to protect them from harm. Even though these women enjoy a certain degree of protection within these camps, the conditions there are often poor. The accused women, as they are sometimes referred to, live in tiny thatched mud huts and have limited access to food and potable water. They fetch water from streams and creeks which are often far away from their camps. Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman made a donation to the Leli Dabara camp in Gushegu municipality and widows in Tamale municipality respectively. The items include rice, maize, millet, cooking oil, purified water, assorted drinks and personal hygiene items, soap and clothes among others.
Very soon we are entering the festive mood. And it doesn't matter when the Muslims celebrate, we enjoy. When the Christians celebrate, we also enjoy. And that is the beauty of our culture. It doesn't matter how you worship. The important thing is how we live with each other.
Professor Opoku-Agyeman also appealed to authorities to interrogate the reasons that accounted for their situation to enable the women to relocate to their various communities.
Everyone deserves to live a dignified life. In Gambaga, as at now, I also see that some flee even with their grandchildren. Maybe their children are working elsewhere, and they've left the children in the hands of the grandparents. If you just look at the environment, what do you see? Where do they sleep? Where are their washrooms? And so on and so forth. I even hear that reptiles climb these short walls at night and harass them. This is not acceptable. Everybody must help. Wherever we are, we can all do something. The state can help, families can help, communities can help, so can individuals.
Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman said there must be a lot of awareness through public education to find lasting solutions to the situation.
A professor of philosophy from the Nnamdi Azikiwe University of Nigeria, Professor Obi Ogwejofo, has described Professor Anton Wilhelm Amu as a great African philosopher who has not received the deserved recognition in Africa. Delivering the maiden Professor Anton Wilhelm Amu lecture, Professor Ogwejofo said Professor Amu was an extraordinary philosopher whose works must be visible in Africa's philosophy departments.
Maiden Professor Wilhelm Amu lecture instituted by the University of Ghana's Merian Institute for Advanced Studies in Africa is collaborating with the Department of Philosophy and Classics and the Institute of African Studies with the support from the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research as well as the German Embassy in Accra. It is to commemorate the exceptional philosopher Anton Wilhelm Amu. The lecture was christened "The Significance of Anton Wilhelm Amu in Contemporary African Philosophy." It seeks to discuss Amu's life and intellectual legacy on contemporary issues such as race, migration, and the philosophy of mind. Anton Wilhelm Amu was born in the early 18th century near Axim and became the first African-born university lecturer in Europe at the universities of Halle and Jena, now Germany. Anton Wilhelm Amu, the first African to study at the Christian European University, became the first African to practice philosophy in Europe since Roman times. The lecture sought to situate Amu's ideals in contemporary times. The Vice-Chancellor of the University of Ghana, Professor Nana Abba Apia Amfo, said Professor Anton Wilhelm Amu's strides paved the way for Africans to pursue philosophy.
For me, Amu represents connections amongst disciplines, as I find him to be a multidisciplinary person, connections among languages, connections among races, connections among countries and institutions, and connections among epochs.
The guest speaker, Professor Obi Ogwejofo, said Anton Wilhelm Amu weathered all storms to achieve greater heights in a period where philosophy was not known.
The philosophy departments in Africa must draw up programs on the history of African philosophy. Because history of philosophy is a big training in philosophizing. And today, there is hardly any program where you have history of African philosophy.
For Professor Ogwejofo, celebrated philosophers have proved their mettle and deserve to find their way into the various departments of philosophy in African universities.
From a report commissioned by HortiFresh into Ghana's horticulture sector, establishing a horticulture development authority in Ghana is the way to go. The report shows a coordinated body is capable of transforming the sector. The report recommended a sustainable source of funding for players in the sector, especially smallholder farmers. The production of vegetables, fruits, flowers and nut crops are said to have great economic potential for developing countries, specifically foreign exchange, job creation and quality food production. Experts in the horticulture sector believe Ghana is making great strides in the sector, but issues such as lack of a sustainable source of funding, lack of a coordinated body to specifically oversee activities in the sector, and other relevant issues stand in the way of growth. The commissioned report looked into fruit processing, pest management guide for onion, and indigenous vegetables in Ghana. Again, from the report, these areas are improving, but a more strategic planning and efforts such as sustainable financing are needed to make Ghana reap full benefits. Ms. Shirley Ashigbe-Yeboah is a programs manager of HortiFresh.
We've worked in the agribusiness financing space, and we've realized that try as we may, if the sector does not receive special interest rates, it's still going to be very difficult to sustainably finance agribusiness.
Professor Francis Amaglo, a lecturer from the University of Development Studies, says growing the horticulture industry will create jobs and promote a healthy society.
The major constraint we need to work against is the availability of seed. We need to make sure we develop the seed market for our indigenous vegetables. It's because people buy tomato seeds to plant,
we also should do the same thing. We should be able to buy our indigenous vegetable seeds. It should be available on the market for us to buy. That's when we'll be serious with it. They are nutrient packed, and we have to take advantage of that.
The Kaneshi Senior High Technical School is seeking to surmount a major obstacle, a snag which threatens the school's very existence. Kateco is fervently appealing to the government to help in settling an impasse between the school and the State Housing Company over accommodation. Kaneshi Senior High Technical is hoping the matter will be resolved by its next anniversary, and that, the school says, will be a worthy celebration. Kateco was established in 1958 by a private individual. Later in 1972, the school was absorbed by the Champon government. The school then became a government-assisted school. As a result, the government supported the school with some bungalows at North Kanishi for teachers and administrative staff to help to steer the affairs of the school. The bungalows in question were procured from the State Housing Corporation 49 years ago. At the time, State Housing did not hand over the documents of the landed property to the school's management. Management also did not follow up on the documents since it was accepted that both institutions are government-owned. Now the school says then State Housing Corporation, now company, is currently asking the staff of the school to vacate the bungalows. The headmistress, Madam Pearl Bruce, spoke to GBC News.
Having lived there for 49 years, I don't think is the ideal thing. We pleading with them to regularize. They can still regularize. It is a government institution. State Housing is a government institution. They should regularize and give us the documents and help us to stay in there.
The school, apart from the accommodation issue, is currently in need of other logistics such as vehicles and other learning materials to enhance learning. An 11-member board of directors has been inaugurated to help turn a bad situation around. The board hopes to make the school's next milestone a worthy celebration. The regional director of education, Mrs. Monica Ankra, advised the new board to ensure harmony between the school and the community.
The Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service consider the policy of community participation as very necessary. The activities of the school cannot be separated from the community whose interests the school seeks to serve. The school board of governors has the role to foster a harmonious relationship between the school and the community and to ensure adequate support of the community to the school.
Kaneshi Senior High Technical School, Kateco, currently has 1,540 students with 3 campuses. It offers courses including applied electricity, building and construction, woodwork, metalwork, and visual arts. Past board members were acknowledged. You're still watching News Hour live on GBC News. We take a break. When we come back, we do some business news. Please stay.
Time now for the business segment. Have you and good afternoon. I am Dorothy Achumai. The Association of Oil Marketing Companies AOMCs has lost GOIL as one of its members. This is due to the decision of GOIL to withdraw from the association following the AOMC's allegations that government influenced the decision of GOIL to reduce fuel price at its pump by 15 pesos. To further deliberate on this, we have on the line the head of research at the Institute of Energy Security, Mr. Fritz Moses. Good afternoon and good to have you join us, sir.
Hello.
Good afternoon and good to have you, sir.
Yeah. Good afternoon, madam.
Thank you for joining us.
Please, who am I speaking with?
This is Dorothy with GBC.
GBC, okay.
Yes, sir. Hope we have Mr. Fritz Moses on the line.
Yes, please.
Thank you. So, our first question, as majority shareholder, can the government make GOIL drop its price at the pump?
Come again. The question is not clear, please.
I'm asking that as majority shareholder, which is GOIL, can the government make it drop its price at the pump?
Yeah. Hello, 1 billion. Hello, 1 billion. Oh, hello, madam.
We are listening, sir.
Yeah. I think the line is not clear, but I'm now okay, please.
So let me ask you the question again.
Okay, madam.
I'm asking that as a majority shareholder, we're talking about GOIL, can the government make the company drop its price at the pump?
Can the company do what?
Can government make GOIL drop its price at the pump?
GOIL?
Yes, please.
That's what?
We'll get back to you, sir. Thank you. We're trying to reach Mr. Fritz Moses, the head of research at the Institute of Energy Security. So we'll get him back online when we have him. A group of civil society organizations wants the government to facilitate a forensic audit of expenditure related to COVID-19 pandemic to help deepen transparency and accountability in the governance process. In a report titled Transparency and Accountability During COVID-19 Outbreak in Ghana, the CSO said the delay in auditing the expenditure is fueling a perception of misappropriation. Since the emergence of COVID-19 in March 2020, Ghana has received support through loans and grants to aid her management of the pandemic. The facilities were used to mitigate the effects of the pandemic on lives and livelihoods. To help track the expenditure, Budget Ghana, in collaboration with US-based Global Integrity and Send Ghana, launched the COVID-19 Transparency and Accountability Project. According to the report, much of the spending occurred through expedited processes due to the nature of the pandemic, and as a result, the risks of corruption, mismanagement and waste were heightened. The report argues that much has not been done to ensure transparency and accountability in the expenditure, despite the country signing up to such clauses. The CSOs now wants the government to facilitate a forensic audit of all pandemic-related expenditure to help deal with perception of corruption.
While commending the government for all this work, it's important to start the conversation about how much we receive through loans and grants from our government partners and how we expended the money. This will engender confidence in our governance process and deal with the growing perception of embezzlement in COVID-19 related expenditure. It is in this spirit that Budget Ghana has come together with our regional partners to track pandemic related expenditure. But we cannot do this work alone. It will require the participation of all CSOs to deepen our voice in the call for accountability.
The National Coordinator of the Economic Governance Platform, Mr. Felix Ankra, urged for timely updates of public expenditure to help ensure transparency and accountability.
The delays is sometimes not good for us. You can go to the IMF website, you can see countries like Afghanistan providing regular updates on what they are doing in terms of COVID expenditure. Tracking the expenditure basically helps us to account for what government is doing for us, whether it's value for money or not.
The COVID-19 Transparency and Accountability Project was run in Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Malawi, Kenya, Cameroon, and Liberia.
You still watching the business segment of News Hour. On the interbank markets, the cedi is trading at 5 cedis 92 pesos to the US dollar, to the pound sterling at 7 cedis 81 pesos, and the euro at 6 cedis 70 pesos. Next are the figures and also the prices of gold, cocoa, and light good from the Commodity Board. For the business segment, the international news is next. Please stay.
It is a nightmare dealing with the filth in Accra. The gutters are choked with garbage,